welcome to the morning show. Well, let's go straight to the on September 14th, the Minister of Finance, now former Minister of Finance, tendered a letter of resignation, and President Buhari accepted that letter of resignation. The issue at stake, of course, in the public domain, is that she's been accused since about 3 months ago of forging an NYSC exemption certificate. And as a result of public outcry and the investigation by the authorities, we took the decision to drop our letter of resignation. What's your take on this development?
Well, first of all, let me say that, Ruben, it was very commendable. The fact that she actually resigned, I believe she did the right and proper thing. The question is, why did it take so long? And the second issue is that why is it that the government did not come out forcefully to say, well, she's done something wrong, she has to go, and then consider the possibility of prosecuting her. If it had been anybody else, if it had been somebody from the opposition party, or anybody that had been involved in forgery or misrepresentation of any form, I can assure you that person would have been herded into custody, would have been arrested, would have been detained, would have been charged to court, and would have been fully prosecuted. But because she was a member of the government, it appears that she was given a clean bill of health, asked to resign and leave the country. And I think that is just not good enough. It's commendable that she resigned, but I think a lot more needs to be done in order to set an example to the Nigerian people and the world that this government is not as partisan and as biased as we all know it to be.
Well, I mean, I get your point, but there are other Nigerians who are saying that whatever may have happened in our case was not intentional, and that, you know, it could happen to anybody. You send trusted associates to get you maybe a license or process some documents, and you have no control over this situation. There are persons who are saying, look, we should let the sleeping dog lie, since she didn't act intentionally in this regard.
Well, that's interesting. I wonder how they came to that conclusion. I don't know what her state of mind was. I don't know what her intentions were. I don't know precisely whether or not she knew what she was doing, but it is deemed. In other words, it's seen by all rational thinking people that if you're a serving minister of the Federal Republic, you ought to know the authenticity of the documentation that you present for your clearance. It's a very rigorous process. I remember I did this, 10, 11, 12 years ago, whenever it was, when I was appointed as a minister by President Obasanjo, and I had to go through every single document, including my NYSC certificate. And many people question whether I ever did the NYSC. And I mean, after a while, with the kind of things they were saying, I began to wonder myself, is it that, you know, I didn't do this? Until I actually ensured that I got my certificate and I presented it. Now, any document that you present to the authorities, to the Senate, or to any other confirming agency is your responsibility, and you have to accept that responsibility. If you have a forged document that you have presented, that means ab initio that you knew what you were doing. And she benefited. She served this nation for a number of years. As Minister of Finance, she represented us in international fora all over the world. And I think it's quite shameless for people to begin to now say, well, maybe she didn't know what she presented. It's fully her responsibility, and she has to explain that, not just jet off back to Cockney, London, and act as if she's done nothing wrong. It's good that she resigned, but this government ought to, you know, step up to the plate and do what it has always said it would do, which we know they never do, and that is to move against those that they believe have done something wrong. In this case, they won't do it because she is one of them.
We're talking about strict liability here. And isn't there also a case of failure of institutions? Because she has used that same certificate to be a commissioner in Ogun State, as she indicated that indeed, when she used that certificate previously, even the Department of State Security vetted, you know, that certificate and had no issues with it. Welcome to the morning show. Well, let's go straight to the on September 14th, the Minister of Finance, now former Minister of Finance, tendered a letter of resignation, and President Buhari accepted that letter of resignation. The issue at stake, of course, in the public domain, is that she's been accused since about 3 months ago of forging an NYSC exemption certificate. And as a result of public outcry and investigation by the authorities, we took the decision to drop our letter of resignation. What's your take on this development?
Well, first of all, let me say that, Ruben, it was very commendable. The fact that she actually resigned, I believe she did the right and proper thing. The question is, why did it take so long? And the second issue is that why is it that the government did not come out forcefully to say, well, she's done something wrong, she has to go, and then consider the possibility of prosecuting her. If it had been anybody else, if it had been somebody from the opposition party, or anybody that had been involved in forgery or misrepresentation of any form, I can assure you that person would have been herded into custody, would have been arrested, would have been detained, would have been charged to court, and would have been fully prosecuted. But because she was a member of the government, it appears that she was given a clean bill of health, asked to resign, and leave the country. And I think that is just not good enough. It's commendable that she resigned, but I think a lot more needs to be done in order to set an example to the Nigerian people and the world that this government is not as partisan and as biased as we all know it to be.
Well, I mean, I get your point, but there are other Nigerians who are saying that whatever may have happened in our case was not intentional, and that, you know, it could happen to anybody. You send trusted associates to get you maybe a license or process some documents, and you have no control over this situation. There are persons who are saying, look, we should let the sleeping dog lie, since she didn't act intentionally in this regard.
Well, that's interesting. I wonder how they came to that conclusion. I don't know what her state of mind was. I don't know what her intentions were. I don't know precisely whether or not she knew what she was doing, but it is deemed. In other words, it's seen by all rational thinking people that if you're a serving minister of the Federal Republic, you ought to know the authenticity of the documentation that you present for your clearance. It's a very rigorous process. I remember I did this, 10, 11, 12 years ago, whenever it was, when I was appointed as a minister by President Obasanjo, and I had to go through every single document, including my NYSC certificate. And many people question whether I ever did the NYSC. And I mean, after a while, with the kind of things they were saying, I began to wonder myself, is it that, you know, I didn't do this? Until I actually ensured that I got my certificate and I presented it. Now, any document that you present to the authorities, to the Senate, or to any other confirming agency is your responsibility, and you have to accept that responsibility. If you have a forged document that you have presented, that means ab initio that you knew what you were doing. And she benefited. She served this nation for a number of years as Minister of Finance. She represented us in international fora all over the world. And I think it's quite shameless for people to begin to now say, well, maybe she didn't know what she presented. It's fully her responsibility, and she has to explain that, not just jet off back to Cockney, London, and act as if she's done nothing wrong. It's good that she resigned, but this government ought to, you know, step up to the plate and do what it has always said it would do, which we know they never do, and that is to move against those that they believe have done something wrong. In this case, they won't do it because she is one of them.
We're talking about strict liability here. But isn't there also a case of failure of institutions? Because she has used that same certificate to be a commissioner in Ogun State, as she indicated that indeed, when she used that certificate previously, even the Department of State Security vetted, you know, that certificate and had no issues with it.
Wrong. It was raised again a few months ago. They attempted to bury it. It didn't work, and now she has resigned. So it's not a question of strict liability. It's a question of the presumption that whatever it is that you present as an authentic document before.
Presumption of irregularities.
To be confirmed as a minister, you take an oath. You swear on the Bible or the Quran or whatever it is that you believe in. She took that oath, And I believe that there is a presumption that she knew what she was presenting, and she believed it was authentic. Now, if she turns around to say, well, I really didn't know, and therefore you should forgive me for doing that, that may fool some, but it certainly doesn't fool me. And I know precisely what this government is trying to do. It's called damage control. I believe that they waited until this moment to ask her to resign. They could have asked her to resign long ago, but they wanted to distract attention from the issue of the SSS, and they now said, okay, look, go away. We decided to send you away now, in order for people to be talking about that and not talk about the SSS issue.
We just mentioned the Department of State Security, and that department has been in the news following President Buhari's decision to appoint, to replace the acting Director General of the Department of State Security with someone who is said to be from his part of the country. And southern leaders, middle belt leaders have said this is yet another demonstration of the attempt by President Buhari to northernize Nigeria, to promote ethnic irredentism, chronism, not just in the security sector, but generally in terms of the appointments he has been making. What do you think?
Well, I think what the president has done is absolutely reprehensible. It's an insult on the people of Nigeria, it's an insult on the people of the South, it's an insult on Christians, it's an insult on the Middle Belt, it's an insult on every Nigerian, regardless of where you come from. Now, I have nothing against the present DG of SSS. I happen to be somebody that is fairly close to the SSS, and I've always had respect for that particular institution. And I know how it works. I know how they operate. And I think that, the implication that there is no Southerner or no Christian within that organization that's capable of doing this job. And what you then do is, you go out of the service, go to somebody that has retired and left service, and bring him back. When the next in line, the next 2 or 3 in line are all Southerners and Christians, that sends a very clear message to the nation and to the country that, you don't trust your own people. That is to say, Christians, Middle Belters and Southerners are not fit to run the premium security agency in the country. Now, you don't look at this in isolation. You look at it from a wider perspective. We have approximately 90 security agencies in this country, all of them vitally important. Every single one of those security agencies and arms of the armed forces, except for one, which is the Navy, is headed by a northern Muslim. This is not acceptable in a multi-religious, multi-ethnic, multicultural nation like Nigeria. It sends the wrong signal. It confirms the fact that President Muhammadu Buhari is effecting an ethnic and religious agenda, and it's quite right. And they did the right thing, the Southern leaders, Middle Belt leaders and elders, to get up and condemn this. And I think it's a very dangerous course that we have taken. The President had the opportunity to dispel this notion, which incidentally I have known he had. I knew his disposition as far back as 2015, as you very well know. But he had this opportunity to actually dispel that notion. Instead, he has confirmed it and told the world that he is only comfortable with putting Hausa Fulani people in key positions of security in this country. If not that, Northern Muslims. This is not good enough, and it's an insult on the Christian community in our nation.
Well,
I should also add this. He also appointed, I'm sorry, Ruben, he also appointed somebody from Kanu to head the minting organization. And these are the people that will be in charge of printing ballot papers and so on and so forth. So the last 2 major appointments he made have been all to Northern Muslims. And we all know what's going on in this country. But most people are scared to speak out and speak the truth. But what we need to understand is that we will not accept this for much longer. It is a dangerous trend, it's unacceptable. This is a multicultural, plural society where dissent and being different should not be a crime. And people should be carried along to maintain the unity and peace of our country. President Buhari, unfortunately, is not doing that.
Well, in many of your commentaries, you tend to talk about religion, you tend to defend Christianity, and you tend to attack the Fulani hegemony. And I guess it was on the basis of this that you were recently invited by the police. Some of your critics say, look, Fani-Kayode is biased. Even if government does anything that is commendable, don't expect him to say so. He's likely to talk about Christianity or ethnicity. Are you guilty as charged?
All right. Let's take that one. I plead not guilty, my lord. Let's take that one at a time. You know, you say, some people say I'm always defending Christianity. I have no apology for that. I will defend my faith any day, anytime, anywhere. And you look at the situation that is unfolding in this country. 2 days ago, 51 people, including a Lutheran pastor, was killed, in cold, slaughtered, you know, by Fulani terrorists. Over the last 3 months, no less than 300 people have been killed in Plateau, that is the Beron people, Plateau, Northern Jos local government area. 300 killed in the space of 3 months by Fulani terrorists. Only yesterday, 3 people were killed by the same Fulani terrorists in Lao in Taraba State. All of these people are Christians, and their whole village was leveled. Every single one is a Christian. Thousands and thousands of Christians have been slaughtered in this country over the last 3 years, to the extent that the American government, Vice President Pence, together with members of the Congress in America, have said that Nigeria is the most dangerous place for Christians to live. Now, if you want me as a leading figure in this country and a politician to keep quiet about those things, I'm sorry, you'll be a very sad person, because I believe it's important to speak out. Now, I also speak out about the killings of non-Fulani people in places like Zamfara. Hausas are being slaughtered, indigenous communities, including Muslims, are being slaughtered there. I've spoken about how Boko Haram have killed not just Christians, though their primary targets are Christian communities and Christian people, but they also kill Muslims. I've spoken up for Sambo Dasuki, who happens to be a northern Muslim. I've spoken up for the Shia Muslims, how they were massacred, 1,000 of them in 2016. I've spoken up about how southern Kaduna Christians were slaughtered in 2016, Christmas Day and Christmas Eve, 808 people. I've spoken up for so many people, not just Christians, but people that are voiceless, people that do not have the support of anybody, people that nobody cares about, that have been slaughtered in this country. And I think that it's important that we speak out. Now you spoke about a police invitation, about an essay that I wrote. And I made it clear that I have no apology. The essay was titled 5 Useful Idiots in the Spirit of the Accursed Slave. I stand by everything that I've said in that essay. I've written thousands of essays over the last 20 years. Never have I been invited by the police because of what I wrote. And I think it's a reprehensible agenda that people in this country should not be able to speak their mind. We are a troubled nation. People are being slaughtered day in, day out. And it's something that we as leaders ought to take responsibility for and call the government out on. And I have no apology for that. I think any responsible leader ought to be doing that. And those that close their eyes and act as if everything is okay and that nothing is going wrong, and then it's all right for people to be subjected to ethnic cleansing, mass murder, and genocide, I commit them to the hands of God, that God will judge them. We have a situation where IPOB youths, young people from the East who are seeking a referendum and self-determination for their people, and they believe they've been aggrieved, rightly so, over the years. They're also being slaughtered in their thousands, simply because they want self-determination. This is abnormal behavior by an abnormal government, and it is an agenda that is reprehensible, and we must confront it. And that is why I will continue to criticize the Buhari administration. One last point. You said they say I never say anything good about this government. What on earth can anybody say that is good about this government, other than the fact that perhaps that the president's wife, Aisha Buhari, is a very beautiful woman? Outside of that, there is absolutely nothing that any right-thinking person can say about this government. Anybody that criticizes them becomes the subject of their insults and their allegations. HSB said it will be a disaster for the economy and for Nigeria if he were to continue. They now say HSBC is corrupt. The same with the Wall Street Journal in New York. The same with the Financial Times of London. They criticize all those that have spoken the truth. And most importantly, Ruben, and this is a fundamental point, I said these things in 2015. Now you look at the situation, every single key figure, including President Obasanjo, General Danjuma, every single one of them, General Babangida, all of them, that supported Buhari in 2015, every single one of them, apart from Bola Tinubu, has now had a rethink and come to my way of thinking and accused him of atrocities and so on and so forth. So I've been vindicated in what I've been saying and writing, and I'll continue to be vindicated. And I'll say this as a last point. If we make the mistake of this, people will no longer accept what is going on in this country.
Femi, I believe you know members of the All Progressive Congress very well. You used to be a member of that party before you returned to the PDP. But there are persons within that party who say they are convinced that there is no alternative to President Buhari, and that in 2018, whatever the HSBC and all those authorities you've quoted may be saying, that Buhari is still the best bet for Nigeria, and that not to elect Buhari, is to take Nigeria backwards. But here you are saying, you don't want Buhari for a second time. The people who say there's no alternative to him, do they have the right to say so, or are they correct in saying so?
Of course, they have the right to say so, just as some people worship the devil in the Church of Satan set up by Anton LaVey many years ago in San Francisco. You can worship the devil, you can say anything you like. The question is whether it's a right and proper thing to do. Those that are supporting Buhari are entitled to do that. But I'll also tell you this. In my view, those that despise Buhari and have contempt for Buhari and have rejected Buhari are far more than those that are for him. And those that say these things, that Buhari is the only person that can run Nigeria, there's no alternative, have insulted the Nigerian people. If we have almost 200 million Nigerians in this country, and you're telling me that the only person that can run our affairs is a man that is approaching 80 years old, who is senile in all his ways, who really doesn't know what's going on around him, who is completely out of touch with reality, then I can tell you that that's probably the biggest insult on the Nigerian people that you can level. But they're entitled to their views. This matter will be determined in February. When and if Buhari is defeated, the next question is whether he will allow others to take power. In other words, whether he'll step down. I have my doubts about that. I believe that he will not step down. He's not a Jonathan. He doesn't have that disposition. And I believe he'll dig in and he will fight until the bitter end, until he's forced out. I hope I'm wrong on that. But that is that is how I view him. I view him with the utmost suspicion. Now I hope I'm wrong on all these things and that we have a smooth transition. But let's wait and see how it will happen. But the notion that he's the only obnoxious is deeply insulting, and it's something that I don't accept.
Well, if you don't accept
and sorry, you mentioned the fact that I was in the APC for a period of time. Yes, that was a wonderful period in the sense that, I'm glad that I did that. For 9 miserable months I was in the APC, and that was even before the party was formed or named. I was in the opposition for 9 months at that time. And I gave my reasons, you know very well why I went. And of course, what I saw there, a wonderful opportunity to actually see evil face to face and sit with evil and know what evil really meant. And I knew, and I discovered at that point, that they had an Islamist agenda. The party was very close to the Islamic Brotherhood in Egypt. Everything about them was about the propagation and this, propagation of Islam and the spreading of Islam and so on and so forth. And I didn't feel it was appropriate for me to remain there. And that's why I left the place, and I'm very happy to have done so.
But if you take a look at the long list of presidential aspirants that we have at the moment, who and who will you say will be likely good candidate by your standards for Nigeria in 2019?
Well, okay, that's a good question. I know each and every one of them very, very well. I have my preference, and at this point I'd rather really not want to say who it is, but I know who I'm supporting quietly. But each and every one of them is better than Buhari. There's no question about that. Each and every one of them is a decent gentleman that sees Nigeria as a country in which all the various ethnic nationalities and the 2 major religious faiths are equal. None of them view Southerners with contempt. None of them look down on the Christian faith. And each and every one of them is an absolute gentleman. I mean, many of them we worked together before. Some of them went to the APC, saw the light, and eventually came back. Some remained steadfast throughout. But they're all good men. I know who I'm supporting. I have my reasons for supporting that. That's what I won't say. Sorry?
Can you give me a short list of, say, 4 out of that list? Out of those aspirants?
Of, say, 4?
Yes, a short list.
Well, I have to be careful here because they're all my friends. But I mean, of course, Tambuwa is a great candidate. Kwakwanso is a great candidate. Atiku, Turaki, McAfee. There are so many that are good candidates. Even Saraki is pretty good. But I know who I'm supporting. And I think the fundamental issue is this. You need to have somebody that can take on Buhari in his base. Because you need to split Buhari's core northern base right into two, or possibly defeat him there, and then marry the middle belt votes, the southern votes, primarily predominantly Christian votes, and moderate Muslim votes in the middle belt in the south and the southwest, to whoever it is that can split Buhari's base. I think anything outside of that would be, we're not being fair to ourselves, and we're leaving Buhari the opportunity to perhaps come back, which I hope to God we don't make that mistake, because we may not have a country left at the end of it. But most important is you need a candidate that will be able to split Buhari's core northern base, and you also need a candidate that will be able to stand and protect his votes. Not somebody that will say, oh, Buhari gets up and the whole thing is rigged, and he said he's not in power, and that he won the election even though he lost it convincingly. You don't want somebody who will say, well, I'm prepared to accept that. You need somebody who will stand up and say, I will go to court, I will stand and I will defend my mandate and my votes. I will not be intimidated. And if you go to the streets, I will also go to the streets. I will ensure that Nigeria is made ungovernable. Just like Buhari himself said that if he was rigged out of the election in 2015, that the dogs and the baboons will both be soaked in blood. You need a man and a presidential, and that's the kind of man I'm supporting.
The statement you just quoted, I recall that the president denied ever saying so. But let's go to Osun, which is your state, your home state.
Well, the President Buhari denied saying that. That is distinctly not true. He said it, I saw it, I listened to it. It was translated from Hausa into English, and that's precisely what he said.
But let's go to Osun State, your state, going to the polls, gubernatorial elections, in a matter of days. How do you read the situation in that state? There was a debate yesterday for the gubernatorial candidates. The candidate of the PDP, your party, didn't even bother to show up at all. And people have been saying all kinds of things about that. But what should we expect in Osun State in terms of outcome and process?
Well, I think it was unfortunate that Demola didn't show up for that debate. I felt that he ought to have done, and I felt that he would have done very well if he had done, because he's the only one in my view that has much to offer. And the PDP, in my view, is the only party that can salvage that state from the kind of atrocities that it's been subjected to. And incidentally, it's my state. I'm from Ile-Ife, so proudly so. So, it's very important to us. What Aregbesola has done in the last few years is reprehensible. Salaries have not been paid, people are suffering. The state is in a complete, dire straits, and mortgage the future of the state for many, many years before anybody can pay back the debt that he has incurred in that place. And there's no money, there's nothing, there's no development. So I was shocked to hear the APC candidate saying that he was ready to continue with that kind of agenda. And I said to myself, I really do feel sorry for the people of Osun State if they opt to go the APC way. I believe the PDP has a good candidate. I believe the PDP is the strongest party on the ground. I believe the PDP will win. And I sincerely hope and pray that when the PDP does win, that the APC will let go of power in that state. And they won't rig us out, as they did in Ekiti and so many other places. So let's wait and see how it goes. But I'm very confident on that. And I believe that Adeleke provides the hope that we all need to salvage our state.
Lagos State has also been in the news politically. I don't know whether you've been following the situation, but whether Governor Ambode deserves a second time around, and the role that Asiwaju Tinubu, who you mentioned earlier, has been playing in the politics of Lagos. What do you think?
Well, of all the APC governors, I have to say that Ambode is the one that, in my view, and I've said this before, has done reasonably well. I believe he's a far more sincere and honest person than even Fashola ever was, or Fashola could ever be. Ambode has been a very, very good governor. And I've never criticized him because, I lived in Lagos virtually all my life till I moved to the north. And I know what he's done in that state. And I think it just tells you something about the APC. The fact that one man can get up and simply say, well, I don't want this gentleman anymore because he's not playing ball, he's not following my dictates, and I'm going to now give it to somebody else. Bola Tinubu does not own Lagos. He's a highly respected person, and I'm very fond of him. I have to say this. I actually like Bola Tinubu. I like him very, very, very much. But he doesn't own Lagos. He doesn't own Lagosians. And when he treats his own people like this, one wonders what he won't do for power. One wonders what he will do to those of us that are on the other side if he had the opportunity to do so. So I think it's unfortunate what he's being subjected to. And I sincerely hope that Ambode will understand that this man will never forgive him. This man will bring somebody in, and that person will probe him and allege all kinds of things against him, and that his fortunes are best served by forgetting about the APC and joining forces with the PDP to salvage the state from bondage and for the rulership of the Godfather that many believe ought to begin to think of stepping out of power and leaving politics forever.
Well, I would have loved to ask you a controversial question, but maybe you shouldn't go in that direction. I would have loved you to compare the Jonathan administration and the Buhari administration, since the Jonathan administration is blamed for everything that has gone wrong under this administration. However, just before I let you go, I'd like you to talk about restructuring, because you've written a lot about restructuring. How should Nigeria be restructured? Is it geographical restructuring, as some people argue, or is it good governance, as the Vice President has been saying, and an argument on this call with former Vice President Atiku Abubakar?
Let me start by saying that the Vice President clearly has been disingenuous on this whole issue. He has indulged in what I would describe as nothing but pernicious lies. He knows what restructuring is all about, but he knows that his party and his government will never offer true restructuring. Restructuring is the only way forward if we want Nigeria to continue as one indivisible nation. If you don't restructure, and I mean restructuring to the various zones, geopolitical zones, not to the states, there's a big difference. Restructuring everything, devolving power, allowing regional police, allowing regional flags, allowing regional military high commands, and so on and so forth. Devolving power from the center, that's the way forward in this country. And if you don't have that, if you don't put that in place, if you don't set that in motion, and have a sort of roadmap to ensure that it's done, at the end of the day, Nigeria is going to have major problems. And one of those problems is already manifesting with IPOB, where people are saying, look, they want to leave because everything is concentrated in the center, all the power. And I'm sorry I have to say this, but it's like comparing light and darkness. It's like comparing the Lord himself, Jehovah Most High, Jesus Christ of Nazareth, and Lucifer, the fallen angel, the devil. What has happened in the last 3 years is something that is completely unacceptable. We, in our nation, we have the first and the fourth most deadly terrorist organizations in the world. That is what has happened. That is the Buhari legacy. Our people are being slaughtered. The economy destroyed. The people are being slaughtered. Genocide, mass murder, ethnic cleansing is alive and well here. These are not just words. It's a reality. And we are more divided today than we have ever been since the Nigerian Civil War. The only thing that gives us hope, and it's important to end on this, are the words of men like Donald Trump, who said faith is more powerful than government, and nothing is more powerful than God. And that's what gives us hope. No matter what Buhari does, no matter what this government does, locking up opposition leaders, flouting court orders, picking up judges in the middle of the night, repressing the press, locking up journalists, intimidating newspaper publishers and TV station owners and so on and so forth, attacking the National Assembly, arresting their leaders, intimidating everybody, locking up opposition figures, insulting anybody that dares to challenge them, and alleging and saying that, oh, corruption is fighting back. We will overcome all this, and that's the hope. God is with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I hope you will agree with me, and other Nigerians will agree with me, that there are no Lucifers in Nigeria, and that there are no dogs, there are no dogs.
I'm sorry, I don't.
So we should always make it.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I don't. We should always
He's alive and well.
We should always draw the line
in the villa
between politics and liberty. Definitely, there are no Lucifers in Nigeria. I don't know.
No. I don't agree with you. I'm sorry. I don't.
But it's been a
because anybody that kills or tolerates that, I don't view as anybody that's godly. So we disagree on that.
Well, but it's been a great pleasure having you on the program, and I like the passion with which you have spoken, even if I also disagree with some of the labels.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming to the morning.
Of course.
Thank you. It's time now for